Hello, and welcome back to our renovation project in central Portugal. In a special episode this week, we've collected some of your most asked questions, and we'll try to answer them and share some of the background, our thinking and approach as we get to grips with our biggest adventure yet, 1 year in.
If you're new to the channel, I'm Jane and this is my husband Phil. Late last year, we bought an abandoned farm with 8,000 square metres of land, not far from Coimbra, the ancient university city in the middle of Portugal. It had been abandoned for decades, and this is our opportunity to bring it back to life. It'll be a long project, but we hope to preserve some of the original character we have been lucky enough to find here. If you'd like to follow our adventure, then please like this video, subscribe to the channel to see future episodes, or comment if you have any suggestions or questions.
Before we get too far into the questions and answers, I had a little job to finish, so it's back to the Adega and the longest running bed build in history. So for the finish on the bed head, we've got 2 layers of the bug treatment on there already. That's given it a little bit of a tint with the chestnut version of that, the bug cleaner, the bug protector. Keeping with the natural textures and so on, we're going to use some linseed oil, apply it by brush, going with the grain to get it into the pores, and then scrubbing it off with the microfiber cloth. Quite thirsty, this wood, it soaks in very, very well. The brush is a lot easier when you've got this slatted construct. It's a lot easier with a brush than trying to put it on with a cloth. Once it's applied, just got to rub it in. A bit of good soaking in everywhere. And even now, with just half of it done, that looks lovely. Okay. So welcome to a very warm autumn weekend in Portugal, where we've just celebrated a year since we first saw this place. And those of you that have subscribed and see us on the channel from some of the early days will have watched our progress, and thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thanks.
We've had a lot of questions have come up, little ideas about who we are, what we do, why we're here. So we thought we'd gather them together and do a bit of a Q&A session and give you some sort of, off the top of the head feedback on why we're here and what we're doing and how we're doing it. We'll dot around the property just to give you a few different perspectives, but as we go along, there's an elephant in the room which I think has to be dealt with straight away. Jane, have you ever done any voiceover work?
Yes. It's been asked quite a few times. It's very kind of you to make those comments, much appreciated. Terribly embarrassed about it all, have to say, but In the interests of complete honesty, yes, I have done voiceover work in the past. It was a very, very long time ago when we lived in the Arabian Gulf and did a little bit of radio work there. I was a radio presenter on Radio Bahrain. You know, it sounds impressive. Very small country. So.
And 30 years ago.
Shh! Don't say that. Anyway, but nothing since, and I've never recorded any audiobooks. Definitely free and available if anybody should feel to send any offers my way. But that's just me fishing, isn't it?
That's fishing, that is. Blimey. So,
yeah, enough of that. Let's move on.
wanton self-promotion.
Move on.
So, on to a more direct question about us and here.
Why are we in Portugal?
Why are we in Portugal? Interesting question, because it goes back to, you know, we've been together a long time, and we've done a number of house projects in the UK, but yeah, they're on places we've lived in. We've done up the houses we've lived in. We had an interesting time last year and the year before where we had to do a bit of work on my father's house whilst he was not living in it, and we just sort of got really into the groove of taking it apart and putting it back together again. And when we finished that, sort of early 2003, we sat there thinking, what are we going to do now? And
felt a bit bored, really.
You know, I'm pretty much at retirement age. I've gone freelance now in my business activities, and so I work now and then. And so having something to, you know, to keep us focused and occupied, I think was quite important as well. Given the way things are in the UK, don't think we could have afforded to do anything without selling everything up and starting again. And
could never have afforded the amount of land we've got here. Never.
No.
Not even in the wilds of Scotland somewhere, I don't think.
Or other parts of the UK are available.
Of course, yes, exactly.
So
1 o'clock siren.
That will tell you, for those of you that have been paying attention, it's 1 o'clock on a Sunday. Anyway, meanwhile, back at the ranch. So we thought about, is there any, and we've seen some TV programs, you know, the old €1 houses in Sicily and some of the bargains that can be had around the different parts of Europe. So we thought, let's research it. And so Jane, as head of research, logistics and planning in this partnership, set about writing up a short list of the requirements and what we wanted and why we wanted it. We took a look. Where did we look at? We looked at Italy.
France.
We looked at France. And we've been on holiday many times in Portugal, mostly in the Algarve, and just sort of like the place. We like the vibe. And we saw we started to seek out on YouTube, finding some of the channels of other people who've done this sort of thing before. And, you know, you all know who you are. You've all been very influential. I can't, you know,
absolutely. Thanks to all of you. Yeah.
There's at least a dozen of you who have had a material impact on us coming here and doing what we're doing. But we sort of drew the list down. I mean, partly because the other thing was getting out of a damp, you know, dirty air environment.
I wanted warmth. Really, that was top of the list. Had to be somewhere with a warmer climate than Britain. Air quality, again, was important to me. I suffered quite badly with asthma, or have done, for the period that we lived in London. So much so that we ended up having to move away from London, which was a big wrench, I have to say. But yeah, somewhere with clean air, a nice climate, not. You know, it was a balance, not too hot, definitely not wet, or not too wet.
So that ruled out the north of Portugal being a bit wetter than, you know, we could have done France, Dordogne and everything, but they were a bit too similar to the UK in climate and style.
The parts of France where the climate was good, we couldn't afford, basically, simple as. So so we homed in on Portugal, and central Portugal seemed to tick a lot of the boxes. That said, we'd never been before, so last September it was a bit of a recce trip as much as anything else. We did a lot of research on the online portals and, you know, Idealista, all of those sort of things. Came up with a list and came over here with a very open mind. We didn't know whether we'd actually ever find anything. But lo and behold, we did, and so a year later, here we are.
Now, we looked at something like 20 odd houses with a range of different agents. And strangely, right at the very end of the trip, one of the agents who'd sort of been a bit frustrated, I think, with us going around saying, yeah, but, don't like, yeah, but, not sure about that, had listened to what we said and came up with an idea that said, look, there's something, bear with me, there's something here that's not what you asked for, but if you don't mind, if you've got some time, let's go and have a look at it. And brought us to the gates of this place. It's probably 4 times the land area than we originally said we wanted.
Yeah, we were really, that was the one sort of, what can I say, part of the plot, but not part of the plot, part of the package that we weren't terribly comfortable with initially and not sure whether we could handle.
But he walked us in through the bottom of the hill, brought us up the slope, and as the house sort of unfolded in front of us, within minutes, it's one of those things, the magic light bulb goes on, we knew this was the place.
Yeah, we both looked at each other and the smiles gave it away, really.
And so here we are. We're just outside of Coimbra. It sits rather similar to what we do in the UK. So in the UK, we're based in Oxfordshire, and Coimbra is not unlike Oxford as a city. It's got the ancient university vibe. It's about the similar sort of size. And so if you imagine a city, and about 20 minutes away, 25 minutes away, there's a market town, and on the edge of the market town is us. We like towns, facilities and stuff, but also a bit of quiet, fresh air and land. So we've got a town just down on the valley there, which is 5 minutes drive away. Supermarkets, builders merchants,
bank, builders merchants, timber merchants,
yeah,
all very important when you're building.
But it's got a lot of the stuff you need on day to day, and then anything else that you don't need on the day to day but need to get, there's the city.
The city, yeah. So ticks a lot of the boxes. We wouldn't have survived out in the wilds of, out up in the mountains with no neighbours. It really wouldn't suit us. So suits some people, great, but not for us really.
No.
But we get that feeling here. It feels isolated, even though it isn't.
But it's quite sort of timely. It's interesting to sit here today, year on, and we're sat in the place where Jane first got going. The first day after we had signed the papers, we came in here. The place was overgrown, densely, foliage everywhere. This is the area. So that wall behind me is
we couldn't really see.
You couldn't see. Well, it was grown out to about where we're sitting. So everything behind us, that's about 4 or 5 meters, was just this mass of green stuff. And if you go back to the very, very early videos, some apologies for the quality. We
didn't know what we were doing.
We were trying our hand at sharing some stuff for our families, and then started it on YouTube, and bizarrely people started watching it and encouraging us to do more. So we've been working ever since to improve how we do things. Go back to the first view and you'll see the state of this place.
Yeah, have a good laugh.
And as we go on, we will celebrate the 1 year of owning it, in a month or two's time. And I think what I'm minded to do is to try to recreate some of the shots that we took then, and to do a package video of compare and contrast to then and now, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But very pleased to be out here on a
1 year on, after what was just a speculative trip. We're very happy to have made the decision we did, I think. Yeah. Well, you're good about building stuff, so you can talk, answer the questions. We've had quite a lot of questions about the main house here behind us here. The roof, how much of it is dry, what we plan to do about the collapsed sections, how much of it we're going to do ourselves. There's a lot of questions there.
Okay, well, I think go back to the basic parts that this house behind us is a ruin. And this was, again, something that we weren't expecting to buy a ruin, but when we saw the house, we saw the layout, we saw what's here, the views, over to the hills over there, down into the trees down there. The house is brilliant, or at least the position of the house is brilliant, but it's a ruin. Many of you have said, what about the holes in the roof? And there are holes in several parts of the roof. We've got one room which I did some repair work on back in the springtime, which gave us a habitable room, and that's in the tiny house. Go back over some of the past videos, you'll see that in process. But what you can see behind me is what is essentially 2/3 of what the end game house will be. We're going to build a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a big sort of open plan sitting, dining, cooking space in the middle of it. The interior, all the interior stuff is Jane's department. I will do some of the work, but I think the structural stuff, the groundworks and the walls and the roof and so on, we'll get a local building contractor in to do. But there's a lot of options between now and then. So for the moment, the roof sections that are broken in, we're not doing anything with. We can't, under the local regulations, you can't do much in a ruin to make it a habitable space.
It's not officially habitable.
Yeah.
That's the long and short of it. So we need to wait until we've got a project approved at the local camera, and that involves working with an architect. Now we're in the early stages of that at the moment. We've had a few meetings, some interesting discussions. They've gone away with lots of photographs and lots of ideas compiled from what we said and what Phil said, so they're going to start coming up with some concepts. So unfortunately we can't show you any of that just yet because we haven't seen it yet, but certainly in the coming few months we expect to have some plans, and that'd be really exciting. Then we can share those with you.
So here's another question that's come up. Why are we doing this now when we bought the place a year ago?
It's okay. That's an interesting one. We didn't want to rush into things to just come piling in here with some fixed ideas as to what was going to happen here. We really felt it was important to get a feel for the place, to learn about it. There's an awful lot of different stuff here. Certainly we've never had to deal with a plot with quite so many trees on it before. Well, nothing of this size anyway. No way could we have afforded this amount of land in the UK.
No.
So that was the first thing. The second thing is learning about the local building methods here. We've had a lot of conversations with people. We've seen an awful lot of other people's houses now, which has been extremely interesting because it's given us an idea for the way that Portuguese houses are built. So that helps us to try, to inform our choices, really. The other thing that we felt was important was to see the property in a full calendar year, to learn a bit about how the light moves around the place, where the sunniest spots are, where the dampest spots are. Definitely a big thing to think about. We felt that was important.
And with sort of the way these houses are originally constructed, managing water is really important. And so getting a sense of where the drainage goes, where does the water flow from and to when it rains? And what can we do then to protect whatever we build here from getting damp? You see so many videos around the Portugal projects which are struggling with damp in stone. So the stone wall behind us, for example, the stone here is quite soft. It's a very sandy stone, and that wall behind us goes out to the road, and so water draining down the road will seep into that stone wall. So how does one manage that? Where does the water go? How intensely does it flow? Learning all these things over a year was really quite important. So I think we've spent the year, we held off and just kicked around what we thought the views, what the outlooks, where do we want to face, where do we want the windows to go, all of those things. And so, we've come up with a very, very rough outline, that two bedroom, one big living room. And we'll see how it goes with the architects.
Lots of people asked us whether we would build away from the road. That we don't think we're going to do, because firstly the building backs onto the road at the moment, and so we want to try and retain as much of the original structure as we legitimately can. We might need to rebuild sections of wall, we're aware of that, but we would like to retain as much of the original character as possible. The road here is really, really quiet. We get about 3 cars a day at most if passing here, and that's mainly on the neighbours down the road. More dogs than cars,
Yes.
but also so that's not a problem, backing onto the road. The other issue is with the structure of the plot, in that in all of this plot is divided into 3 areas. So there are 2 what they call urban articles, which cover the tiny house, the main house, and an area sort of surrounding it.
Yeah.
So that somewhat limits the place where we could locate a house. There apparently is some flexibility as to the boundaries of that, and it can be redrawn. We've discovered that from talking to the architects that the location of our current gate entrance is on the rustic land, where it absolutely has to be on the urban land where the building is built. So that's something we didn't know. So all of these things need to be worked through. But,
yeah, there's all sorts of little fine points in the regulations about, should you ever come to sell one parcel of land, you don't want your access or your power or your water coming to your property across someone else's land. So organising things like that, again, priceless advice from the architect, and given us a lot to think about, but well worth knowing before you dive in and make some expensive mistakes.
So anybody coming here, I would definitely recommend, take a while.
Absolutely, yes. So back to the house, and so a lot of it is going to stay. We're not going to do very much with the roofs.
We're not going to do a second story. We have decided that.
No, we're going to keep it future-proof for aging people with future knee problems. So what we're going to do is we will sort of loosely patch up some of the worst bits. So what we need to be able to get is some dry space for storage. We'll go on to our comings and goings in a bit, but when we're not here, we need to have dry space and safe space, lockable space for storage, and of course that needs a roof so it can be dry. And so I've done little bits of work, little bits of patch-up repairs to give us a few rooms that are dry, clear, and lockable. And I think that's about as far as I'm going to go, outside of then the main building work, which will follow and tear half of that apart.
Yeah, seems crazy to spend a lot of time building something you're going to rip apart, isn't it?
Well, it is, because a lot of what I'm doing has to be regarded as temporary, because it's not going to be the finishing point, it's not going to be the final object. So I'll build something, but I'm building something for a life cycle of 1 to 2 years rather than 10 to 20 years. And so again, just a slightly different mindset around what I'm building and how I'm building it.
So that's nice. We're in a more shady spot now, down by the well.
Yeah, it's again, another set of questions has come to us about water and sources, uses and so on of water. So Janie, we decided, although we said we were going to go as off-grid as possible and as sustainable as possible, we decided to take a mains water supply. So tell me about that and how that works with our off-grid lifestyle plans.
Yeah, that was my insurance policy. I really felt that buying a property next to woodland, a forest, it's not a very big bit of forest, this bit next to us, but there are eucalyptus trees which are extremely flammable nearby, and you know, I'm wanted to feel a bit safe.
Yeah.
So I think the mains water, the decision to get a mains water connection was really about insurance and safety more than anything. We do have plenty of water on the property. The well that we've seen me attempting to clean on frequent occasions,
Repeatedly
is still in a state of disrepair, will need quite a bit of work doing to it, but we do intend to use that water for irrigating, for generally, you know, looking after the land. We haven't had it tested yet. We believe there's a place in the nearby town where we can get it tested.
Yep.
We believe that there's an awful lot of filters that would still be needed to make it drinking water friendly, so we're not quite sure that we'll go through that route. But we're currently quite happy in getting some drinking water from the local spring down the road. Again, that's not completely controlled, but we do put it just through a normal water filter. But we think it's really nice, and we found it's delicious. So we'll stick with that.
It's some of the best water I've had in years. It's brilliant.
The stream at the bottom of the land we might be able to use, but we discovered when we came this time.
Well, the stream runs, we think the stream, if you look at the direction of travel, the stream runs from the spring, which is up in the next village, and heads sort of southeastwards down the hill. So we suspect it's from the same source. The water spring ran not dry, but it was a shadow of its former flow self when we were collecting water this trip, and so the stream dried up. Our stream dried up. The well, on the other hand, you'll have seen in a video a few weeks ago, we dropped some weights down it and got to see it at 5 meters surface depth and another 8 meters below. Looking in it now, I reckon, so total of around about 13 meters of depth. I reckon now we're about 10 meters to the surface. So even having gone through the peak of summer, and with the fire season and the very hot days we've had a couple of weeks ago, it is still water. And if we
needed it, you know, we could still pump from there.
And I've seen frogs swimming in it. And apparently, I'm led to believe that's a very good sign. So fingers crossed, when we get next year, we'll get something going on there. The well itself will take down the wall surrounding it. You'll have seen it in some of the past videos. So we're going to need some help with a digger and a craney thing to get the iron mechanism off it. Once we get that off it, we can get somebody down it to do a clean-up job and to...
Not me.
Nor me.
Definitely not me.
We can get it cleaned up inside. We can then take down the stone wall surrounding it and put a block and beam cap on it.
Over it to protect it and to...
with a hatch for a submersible pump. Then we can get the stonework rebuilt around it and put the...
Clean up the mechanism
and get that put back in as an ornament.
Make a very decorative feature.
Yeah.
And what might ultimately be the main approach to the house. So that should be really rather nice, I think.
Yeah. The other thing from a water point of view is to really go to town on rainwater collection. So when we're done, we will have quite a substantial roof area, and much as in Portugal you don't see many gutters, I'm very minded to do whatever we can to capture the water. And again, it then comes down to the uses. So water for irrigation and watering the gardens and the plants is one thing. water for general household use is another thing, and water for sanitation as well is another thing, and water for drinking. And they don't all have to come from the same source. So I'm flexible on this and open to thoughts and suggestions. So, you know, anybody's got any experiences or any ideas, by all means share with us.
We've spoken to the architect that we'd like to use the grey water to recycle within the property, haven't we?
Of course, yes, and then so then the grey water that's used from the house, again going back into irrigation, and you know, in a climate such as this, it's beautiful today, blue skies. It does get warm and dry in the summertime. Making the most and making the best use of water is really important. So we're on board for that.
Right, Phil, next question. Down in the, on what we call South Lawn. It's not a lawn yet, it's got a way to go.
It's got a way to go before we truly have South Lawn, but it'll do for now.
Yeah. Big question, are we staying here in winter?
Well, sort of yes, but sort of no. And this talks back to the whole question about visas and residency and whatever.
Not the whole winter.
I think the answer is not the whole winter. So we are, as British citizens on post-Brexit, we are bound by the Schengen regulations where we can come and go on tourist visas, but we are limited in the time we can spend in Portugal for that. So up until now, all that you've seen us do, we've done in November, February, April, 5 months. So we've had 5 months on site in the year that you've been watching us. And so everything that's been done has been done in 5 months. It's been fairly intense work, but such is life until we sort things out longer term. So yes, we do stay here in the winter. We don't stay here on site because we don't have heating. We've got limited space to sleep and live indoors. We spend most of our time when we're here outdoors, doing stuff outdoors. So in the winter months, we'll come for a month before Christmas. We'll be back again in the early springtime. Those months we will stay. We've got some lovely friends down the road. They've got a brilliant Airbnb. Hats off to Helen and Edwin. Really grateful for their support and their facilities and their guidance and advice and friendship and everything else that goes with. But we are off-site sleeping for a couple of months on the trips. We've done three months here sleeping, which has been brilliant. It's been a great experience. But until we get heating and other facilities sorted, you never know, next winter maybe. But what is that, you know, Jane, let's go on to the longer term.
Longer term, yes. We have been asked, are we planning to live here full time? I think the answer to that, certainly in the short term, is probably no. But we would like to be here more.
Yes.
So don't panic, Mum, you know, we're not leaving you just yet.
Yeah, I think being here for longer, you know, not necessarily full time, but for longer, will take the pressure off. Yeah, we've got a very clear, we're here for a month, we're here for 30 days, get stuff done, which is lovely.
We do feel restricted by that. So,
but it does, especially in the last week, when you think, you know, stuff gets pushed back and you think, oh, I haven't done that yet, and oh, I still need to do that. I've got to make sure I finish that before we go. We were really blessed last week. Some friends came out from London and stayed in Coimbra and gave us the chance to do a bit of tourism and to go with them and walk around the city. We've never done it. We've missed out on so much, and it would be lovely to have more time, more capacity to do more stuff, but also more capacity to spend more time soaking in and enjoying what's around us.
And I think it's going to be very important, once we've got the plans approved, that we're here when the build process takes place, and we would want to be on top of that and so
More and more
we're
so.
exploring the possibilities of visas, or the not residence visas, I mean by that.
Yeah.
But that does involve an obligation, certainly, to commit to at least 8 months out of every 12 in Portugal. So there are certain changes we might need to process with our lifestyle in general to deal with that.
Yeah.
To try and work out, the best balance. Really, this split has worked okay for the last year, but yeah, I think we need to change.
But again, it's another of those things. Live with it for a year or so, and you'll find out the strengths and weaknesses of the arrangement you have, and then you make your choices as you go along.
Yeah, so I think our thoughts at the moment is that we'll probably look to apply for the D7 visa, which is the passive income visa, or retirement visa they call it, although we haven't quite retired.
Haven't quite retired, but we're working on it.
But there's, as far as we understand, a huge pile of paperwork that needs to be assembled to qualify for that. Not least, we have to write a letter of motivation as to why we want to live in Portugal, which could be quite fun. But
if only one of us had done sales and marketing at some time in our careers.
Yes, we'll have fun writing those.
Hey ho. But yeah, it goes alongside what we said earlier on with the architect. I think trying to do this on your own is going to be tough. Take advice, take guidance, because it's procedural. Portugal is bureaucratic and procedural, and if you know the procedures, or if you've got somebody that can guide you on the procedures, it makes life a whole lot easier. So again, we'll be taking some help in working out the best path forwards. But long term, yeah, love it here. It's a beautiful morning, late September, just sort of soaking in around us now.
He's waxing lyrical again.
Late September, sun is shining, we're in t-shirt and shorts, and yeah,
I can get used to this.
Anyway, enough of that. This has been a rather unusual episode, so forgive us for rambling on and taking up so much of your time in chat, but we thought it worth just answering some of the questions and giving you some of the explanation for the reasons why. You've seen a lot of us doing stuff, but I think it's good to put a bit of context around that. So thanks for bearing with us. Getting back to more of the stuff that you're more used to.
Feel free to keep putting questions in the comments as much as you like. It's we do wade through and answer them.
And I do intend to do a sort of compare and contrast when we get back in, sometime later in the year, which will be the first anniversary of us actually striking ground.
Yeah,
and doing a compare and contrast a year in, then and now. So again, looking forward to that. And if there's anything you particularly want to see compared then and now, again, put a note in the bottom and let us know. We'll share whatever we can with you, and we're very grateful that you're joining us for the ride.
Yep, thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
And on that note, thanks and bye for now.
Bye.